Right bracket Chapter 3. Spirit bodies. The heathen nations, like most modern Christians, are not certain just what a spirit is. They have assumed that it is a breath of life or an entity like the wind that is neither visible nor in a form. They even believe that they shall receive a spiritual entity like their God, which has neither body parts nor passions. Mormons believe that such a description is in reality annihilation or oblivion. A spirit body has the form and the character of a person who has a physical body. All who die and enter paradise will recognize each other as they did on earth. They will also have the same feelings, desires and dispositions that they had in mortality. Parley P. Pratt. JD 1:7-8. The outward tabernacle, inhabited by a spirit, returns to the element from which it emanated. But the thinking being, the individual, active agent or identity that inhabited that tabernacle, never ceased to exist, to think, act, live, move, or have a being, never ceased to exercise those sympathies, affections, hopes, and aspirations, which are founded in the very nature of intelligences, being the inherent and invaluable principles of their eternal existence. No, they never cease. They live, move, think, act, converse, feel, love, hate, believe, doubt, hope, and desire. Right bracket But what are they, if they are not flesh and bones? What are they, if they are not tangible to our gross organs of sense? Of what are they composed, that we can neither see, hear, nor handle them, except we are quickened, or our organs touched by the principles of vision, clairvoyance, or spiritual sight? What are they? Why, they are organized intelligences. What are they made of? They are made of the element which we call spirit, which is as much an element of material existence as earth, air, electricity, or any other tangible substance recognized by man, but so subtle, so refined is its nature, that it is not tangible to our gross organs. It is invisible to us, unless we are quickened by a portion of the same element, and like electricity and several other substances, it is only known or made manifest to our senses by its effects. For instance, electricity is not always visible to us, but its existence is made manifest by its operations upon the wire, or upon the nerves. We cannot see the air, but we feel its effects, and without it we cannot breathe. If a wire were extended in connection with the equatorial line of our globe in one entire circle of 25,000 miles in extent, the electric fluid would convey a token from one intelligence to another, the length of the entire circle, in a very small portion of a second, or, we will say, in the twinkling of an eye. This, then, proves that the spiritual fluid or element called electricity is an actual, physical and tangible power, and is as much a real and tangible substance, as the ponderous rocks which were laid on yesterday in the foundation of our contemplated temple. It is true that this subtle fluid or spiritual element is endowed with the powers of locomotion in a far greater degree than the more gross or solid elements of nature, that its refined particles penetrate amid the other elements with greater ease, and meet with less resistance from the air or other substances, than would the more gross elements. Hence its speed or superior powers of motion. Now let us apply this philosophy to all the degrees of spiritual element, from electricity, which may be assumed to be one of the lowest or more gross elements of spiritual matter, up through all the gradations of the invisible right bracket fluids, till we arrive at a substance so holy, so pure, so endowed with intellectual attributes and sympathetic affections, that it may be said to be on a par, or level, in its attributes, with man. Let a given quantity of this element, thus endowed or capacitated, be organized in the size and form of man. Let every organ be developed, formed, and endowed, precisely after the pattern or model of man's outward or fleshly tabernacle. What would we call this individual organized portion of the spiritual element? We would call it a spiritual body, an individual intelligence, an agent endowed with life, with a degree of independence, or inherent will, with the powers of motion, of thought, and with the attributes of moral, intellectual, and sympathetic affections and emotions. We would conceive of it as possessing eyes to see, ears to hear, hands to handle, as in possession of the organ of taste, of smelling, and of speech. Such beings are we, when we have laid off this outward tabernacle of flesh. Brigham Young. JD 9:287. Take the spirit from the body, and the body is lifeless, but in the resurrection the component parts of our bodies will again be called together, expressly for glorious resurrection to immortality. Our bodies, which are now subject to death, will return to Mother Earth for a time, to be refined from that which pertains to the fall of man, which has particularly affected the body, but not the spirit. When the spirit enters the body, it is pure and holy from the heavens, and could it reign predominantly in the tabernacle, ruling, dictating, and directing its actions without an opposing force, man never would commit a sin, but the tabernacle has to suffer the effects of the fall, of that sin which Satan has introduced into the world, and hence the spirit does not bear rule all the time. Right bracket Joseph Smith. JD 6:240. Lying spirits are going forth in the earth. There will be great manifestations of spirit, both false and true. Being born again comes by the Spirit of God through ordinances. An angel of God never has wings. Some will say that they have seen a spirit, that he offered them his hand, but they did not touch it. This is a lie. First, it is contrary to the plan of God. A spirit cannot come but in glory. An angel has flesh and bones. We see not their glory. The devil may appear as an angel of light. Ask God to reveal it. If it be of the devil, he will flee from you; if of God, he will manifest himself, or make it manifest. Charles W. Penrose. JD 21:222. It is stated that the spirit and the body make up the soul of man, and that the resurrection from the dead is the redemption of the soul. We are taught also that there are material elements and spiritual elements, that the spiritual part of our being was in the beginning with God, and that the spiritual and material, when inseparably connected, receive a fullness of joy, otherwise men cannot receive a fullness of joy. It takes the spiritual part of man and the material or physical part joined together inseparably to obtain a fullness of joy. When the spirit is separated from the body, a fullness of joy cannot be obtained. When the spirit is joined to the body temporarily under a temporal law, under the law of death, it cannot receive a fullness of joy. The spirit and the body must be so joined together that both will be immortal, and in that condition, man can receive a fullness of joy. Orson Pratt. JD 15:242-243. I think it is admitted by the whole Christian world that man is a being compounded of body and spirit, at right bracket least all the Christian societies with which I am acquainted believe this. They all believe that within man's body or tabernacle of flesh and bones, there dwells an immortal spirit. All Christian societies, with perhaps very few exceptions, believe that this human spirit, which dwells within the tabernacle, will exist after the dissolution of the body. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Some, however, do not believe that the spirit is a personage. They think it is something which cannot be defined, something that has neither the shape nor the properties which we give to any kind of material substance. The views of the immaterialist are that the spirit occupies no space, and has no relation to matter, something entirely separate and distinct from matter. There are, however, but few in the Christian world who have worked themselves so far into the depths of these mysteries, as they term them, as to believe in such absurdities as these. I could not believe it for one moment, I never did. To suppose that there is a spirit in man and that that spirit has no shape, no likeness and occupies no space, as the immaterialists inform us in the writings, is something that I do not believe and never could believe unless I became perfectly beside myself and deranged in my mind. We, as Latter-day Saints, believe that the spirits that occupy these tabernacles have form and likeness similar to the human tabernacle. Of course there may be deformities existing in connection with the outward tabernacle, which do not exist in connection with the spirit that inhabits it. These tabernacles become deformed by accident in various ways, sometimes at birth, but this may not altogether or in any degree deform the spirits that dwell within them. Therefore we believe that the spirits which occupy the bodies of the human family are more or less in the resemblance of the tabernacles. Right bracket Charles W. Penrose. JD 24:94-95. Why should not a person when out of the body be able to understand as when in the body? If we believed like some of the people of India, that when the spirit leaves the body it goes back to Brahma, or emerges into the generally diffused spirit of the universe, then we might conclude that they would not understand anything when they leave the body. If the spirit becomes a non-entity when it is disembodied, we might have reason for entertaining such a notion. But we understand that the spirit is the real man, and that the body is but the outside covering, that when the change we call death comes, the body returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. That the spirit is the actual person, that which thinks and reasons, the body being but the medium conveying impressions to the real man operating inside of it. That when the spirit is liberated, although not subject to the same laws as when in the tabernacle, yet it is the same person, a son or daughter of God, a being capable of thinking, of receiving inspiration, of accepting or rejecting that which is presented, and therefore is a subject of salvation. If not, why not? What is the reason? I think we will find when we shuffle off this mortal coil, when we get rid of the trammels of the mortal body, and enter into the spirit state, we shall be, if anything, more intelligent than when in the body. We shall not be bound by the same laws that now bind our mortal flesh, and we will be able to comprehend a great many things, which were very hard for us to get a little inkling of while in the mortal tabernacle. Erastus Snow. J.D. 19:273. Speech is not something peculiar to the tabernacle and belonging to this tabernacle. It belongs to the Spirit, and the Spirit teaches the tabernacle, and the Spirit makes use of the tabernacle. When once it finds itself embodied in this tabernacle, it begins to use the fingers and hands right bracket of the tabernacle, and makes these its servants. The moment it is separated, this tabernacle lies senseless. It has mouth and teeth and tongue and organs of speech, but it cannot use them. It has eyes, but it cannot see. It has ears, but it cannot hear, and it has no power of using these organs. It cannot set itself in motion, it cannot keep itself in motion, it is the Spirit that does all this. And when the Spirit is separated from the tabernacle, it still retains the power of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling and conversing, but the tabernacle loses all these powers the moment the Spirit takes its departure. Brigham Young. J.D. 7:288. How many times have I been asked, do you believe that such a man as John Wesley will be damned? I could answer the question either way, for they do not know what it is to be saved or damned. John Wesley is in the spirit world. He did not receive the ordinances of the everlasting gospel in the flesh, and consequently is not prepared to hold the keys of the kingdom, and be a minister of the great work of God in the last dispensation, but is dependent upon others to attain a celestial glory. Has he gone to hell? No. When the spirit leaves the body, it goes into the spirit world, where the spirits of men are classified according to their own wills or pleasure, as men are here, only they are in a more pure and refined state of existence. Do you suppose that John Wesley is lifting up his eyes in hell, being in torment? No, he is talking to those who heard and would not believe him when he was on the earth. He may be asking them whether they do not now see the justice of a reformation from the Church of England made of religion, whether they do not now see that that church had gone astray from the true religion, and that he was right. Yes, and they, no doubt, see it as John Wesley does, and are willing to worship God according to the best knowledge they have. As death left him, so judgment will find him, trying to worship God in the best right bracket manner he was acquainted with. John Wesley and his true followers will receive a glory far surpassing what they ever thought or dreamed of, while under the influence of their greatest inspirations, and they will be saved. Are they also damned? Yes, because they have not attained the victory over the enemy of all righteousness. It is the holy priesthood of God that gives man the victory in this world, and he begins to reign over the power of the enemy here. The keys of the kingdom of the Son of God outreach and circumscribe the power of the enemy. Brigham Young. J.D. 4:268-269. Can any man tell the variety of the spirits there are? No, he cannot even tell the variety that there is in the portion of his dominions in which God has placed us, on this earth upon which we live, for we can see an endless variety on this little spot, which is nothing but a garden spot in comparison to the rest of the kingdoms of our God. Again, you may observe the people, and you will see an endless variety of disposition, and an endless variety of physiognomy. Bring the millions of faces before you, and where can you find two faces precisely alike in every point? Where can you find two human beings precisely alike in the organization of their bodies with the spirits? Where can you point out two precisely alike in every particular in their temperaments and dispositions? Where can you find two who are so operated upon precisely alike by a superior power that their lives, their actions, their feelings, and all pertaining to human life are alike? I conclude that there is as great a variety in the spiritual as there is in the temporal world, and I think that I am just in my conclusion. There is no spirit among the human family that was begotten in hell, none that were begotten by angels, or by any inferior being. They were not produced by any being less than our Father in heaven. He is the Father of our spirits, and if we could know, understand, and do His will right bracket, every soul would be prepared to return back into His presence. And when they get there, they would see that they had formerly lived there for ages, that they had previously been acquainted with every nook and corner, with the palaces, walks, and gardens, and they would embrace their father, and he would embrace them and say, "My son, my daughter, I have you again," and the child would say, "Oh, my father, I am here again." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Are all spirits endowed alike? No, not by any means. Will all be equal in the celestial kingdom? By no means. Some spirits are more noble than others, some are capable of receiving more than others. There is the same variety in the spirit world that you behold here, yet they are of the same parentage, of one Father, one God, to say nothing of who He is. They are all of one parentage, though there is a difference in their capacities and ability, and each one will be called to fill the station for which he is organized, and which he can fill. Orson Pratt, JD 2:247. When I speak of the future state of man, and the situation of our spirits between death and the resurrection, I long for the experience and knowledge to be gained in that state, as well as this. We shall learn many more things there. We need not suppose our five senses connect us with all the things of heaven, and earth, and eternity, and space. We need not think that we are conversant with all the elements of nature, through the medium of the senses God has given us here. Suppose He should give us a sixth sense, a seventh, an eighth, a ninth, or a 50th. All these different senses would convey to us new ideas, as much so as the senses of tasting, smelling, or seeing communicate different ideas from that of hearing. Do we suppose the five senses of man converse with all the elements of nature? No. Right bracket Brigham Young. Way to Perfection, page 319. Suppose then, that a man is evil in his heart, wholly given up to wickedness, and in that condition dies, his spirit will enter the spirit world intent upon evil. On the other hand, if we are striving with all the powers and faculties God has given us to improve our talents, to prepare ourselves to dwell in eternal life, and the grave receives our bodies while we are thus engaged, with what disposition will our spirits enter their next state? They will be still striving to do the things of God, only in a much greater degree, learning, increasing, growing in grace and in the knowledge of the truth. Brigham Young, JD 2:256. In the first place, the spirit is pure, and under the special control and influence of the Lord, but the body is of the earth, and is subject to the power of the devil, and is under the mighty influence of that fallen nature that is of the earth. If the spirit yields to the body, the devil then has power to overcome both the body and spirit of that man, and he loses both. Recollect, brethren and sisters, every one of you, that when evil is suggested to you, when it arises in your hearts, it is through the temporal organization. When you are tempted, buffeted, and step out of the way inadvertently, when you are overtaken in a fault, or commit an overt act unthinkingly, when you are full of evil passion, and wish to yield to it, then stop and let the Spirit, which God has put into your tabernacles, take the lead. If you do that, I will promise that you will overcome all evil, and obtain eternal lives. But many, very many, let the Spirit yield to the body, and are overcome and destroyed. The influence of the enemy has power over all such. Those who overcome every passion and every evil will be sanctified and be prepared to enjoy eternity with the blessed. If you have never thought of this before, try to realize it now. Let it rest upon your minds, and see if you can discover in yourselves the operations of the spirit and the body, which constitute the man. Continually and righteously watch the spirit that the Lord has put in you, and I will promise you to be led into righteousness, holiness, peace, and good order. But let the body rise up with its passions, with the fallen nature pertaining to it, and let the spirit yield to it, your destruction is sure. On the other hand, let the spirit take the lead, and bring the body and its passions into subjection, and you are safe. Brigham Young, JD 14:231. I can say with regard to parting with our friends, and going ourselves, that I have been near enough to understand eternity, so that I have had to exercise a great deal more faith to desire to live than I ever exercised in my whole life to live. The brightness and glory of the next apartment is inexpressible. It is not encumbered with this clog of dirt we are carrying around here, so that when we advance in years, we have to be stubbing along, and to be careful lest we fall down. We see our youth, even, frequently stubbing their toes and falling down. But yonder, how different. They move with ease and like lightning. If we want to visit Jerusalem, or this, that, or the other place, and I presume we will be permitted if we desire, there we are, looking at its streets. If we want to behold Jerusalem as it was in the days of the Savior, or if we want to see the Garden of Eden as it was when created, there we are, and we see it as it existed spiritually, for it was created first spiritually, and then temporally, and spiritually it still remains. And when there we may behold the earth as at the dawn of creation, or we may visit any city we please that exists upon its surface. If we wish to understand how they are living here on these Western islands, or in China, we are there. In fact, we are like the light of the morning, or, I will not say the electric fluid, but its operations on the wires. God has revealed some little things with regard to his movements and power, and the operation and motion of the lightning, furnish a fine illustration of the ability and power of the Almighty. If you could stretch a wire from this room around the world until the two ends nearly met here again, and were to apply a battery to one end, if the electrical conditions were perfect, the effect of the touch would pass with such inconceivable velocity that it would be felt at the other end of the wire at the same moment. This is what the faithful saints are coming to. They will possess this power, and if they wish to visit different planets, they will be there. If the Lord wished to visit his children here, he is here. If he wished to send one of his angels to the earth to speak to some of his children, he is here. When we pass into the spirit world, we shall possess a measure of this power, not to that degree that we will when resurrected and brought forth in the fullness of glory to inherit the kingdoms prepared for us. The power the faithful will possess then will far exceed that of the spirit world, but that enjoyed in the spirit world is so far beyond this life as to be inconceivable without the spirit of revelation. Here, we are continually troubled with ills and ailments of various kinds, and our ears are saluted with the expressions, my head aches, my shoulders ache, my back aches, I am hungry, dry, or tired, but in the spirit world we are free from all this, and enjoy life, glory, and intelligence, and we have the Father to speak to us, Jesus to speak to us, and angels to speak to us. And we shall enjoy the society of the just and the pure who are in the spirit world until the resurrection. Orson Pratt. JD 2:238, 239, 240. What further are we told on the subject? That after we get back into the presence of God and return home again, then it shall come to pass that the spirits of the righteous, those who have done good, those who have wrought the works of righteousness here upon the earth, shall be received into a state of rest, a state of happiness, of peace, a state of joy, where they will remain until the time of the resurrection. The same spirit that is capable of suffering here will be capable of far more intense suffering hereafter. The same spirit that is capable of great joy here will be capable of far more intense joy and pleasure hereafter, and the same things of an external nature that are capable of producing intense pain here are, under certain circumstances, capable of producing 100-fold more pain hereafter. If this be the case, how important it is that we should take that course that the spirit may, in its future state of existence, be placed under circumstances where we can obtain the pleasure, joy, and happiness, and escape the pains, evils, and bitterness of misery, to which some spirits will be exposed. It is, then, this memory that will produce the suffering and the pains upon that class of spirits, whose works have been wicked and abominable in the sight of God. The spirit, then, will remember that at such a time in yonder world, and at such a place, I disobeyed the commandments of God, I did not hearken to the counsel of those whom God had appointed to be my counselors, I did not give heed to the man of God, no, but I rejected his sayings, good counsel was imparted to me, but I did not heed it. In this life, things that may have been erased from your memory for years will be presented before you with all the vividness, as if they had just taken place. This will be like a worm upon the conscience, it will prey upon the spirit, and produce unhappiness, wretchedness, and misery. This will cause you to lament, and mourn, and weep after you are cast out from the presence of God, from the home to which you have returned. I am speaking now of the wicked. What is it that produces the opposite principle? There is an opposition in all things, it is the reflection of the memory that produces joy, that is one of the elements by which joy and happiness are produced upon the spirit of man in the future state. We remember the acts of our past lives that they have been good. We perceive by our memories that we have been obedient to counsel, we perceive that when we have erred through a weakness, we have repented of that error, when we have been told of a fault, we have forsaken it. When we look back upon acquaintances and neighbors, we perceive that we have observed the golden rule, to do unto others as we would that others should do unto us. We look back upon our past lives, and we perceive we have never spoken evil against a brother or sister, that we have never striven to stir up family broils, and that we have never desired to injure any of the children of men, male or female. What do these reflections produce? They produce joy, satisfaction, peace, consolation, and this joy is 100-fold more intense than what the spirit is capable of perceiving or enjoying in this life. Why? Because just in proportion to the vividness of the conscience, or the memory, so will be the joy. This you may have knowledge of by everyday experience, just in proportion to the vividness of your ideas, and of the truth set before your minds, and of the good things that are imparted to you, the more intense is your happiness here. How much more intense would it be hereafter, when this mortal clog with all its imperfections has been laid down in the grave? The fact is, our spirits then will be happy, far more happy than what we are capable even of conceiving, or having the least idea of in this world. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. We might now inquire, what is the cause of this intense suffering and misery? Is it the action of the elements upon the spirit? Is it the materials of nature, operating from without upon it, that causes this distress, this weeping, wailing, mourning, and lamentation? It may be in some measure, it may help to produce the misery and the wretchedness, but there is something connected with the spirit itself, that no doubt produces this weeping, wailing, and mourning. What is this something? It is memory and remorse of conscience, a memory of what they have once done, a memory of their disobedience. Do you not suppose the spirits can have power to remember in that world as well as in this? Yes, they certainly can. Have you never read in the Book of Mormon, where it informs us that every act of our lives will be fresh upon the memory, and we shall have a clear consciousness of all our doings in this life? Yes, we have read that in the Book of Mormon. A clear consciousness. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Wait until these mortal bodies are laid in the tomb, when we return home to God who gave us life, then is the time we shall have the most vivid knowledge of all the past acts of our lives during our probationary state. Brigham Young. JD 4:132-133. Brother Grant can now do 10 times more than if he was in the flesh. Do you want to know how? He is in the spirit world, he has conquered death and hell, and will the grave, when he again assumes his body. He is no more subject to the devils that dwell in the infernal regions, he commands them, and they must go at his bidding, he can move them just as I can move my hand. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. When men overcome as our faithful brethren have, and go where they see Joseph, who will dictate them and be their head and prophet all the time, they have power over all disembodied evil spirits, for they have overcome them. Those evil spirits are under the command and control of every man that has had the priesthood on him, and has honored it in the flesh, just as much as my hand is under my control. Do you not think that Brother Jedediah can do more good than he could here? When he was here the devils had power over his flesh, he warred with them and fought them, and said that they were round him by millions, and he fought them until he overcame them. So it is with you and I. You never felt a pain and ache, or felt disagreeable or uncomfortable in your bodies and minds, but what an evil spirit was present causing it. Do you realize that the ague, the fever, the chills, the severe pain in the head, the pleurisy, or any pain in the system, from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet, is put there by the devil? You do not realize this, do you? I say but little about this matter, because I do not want you to realize it. When you have the rheumatism, you realize that the devil put that upon you. No, but you say, I got wet, caught cold, and thereby got the rheumatism. The spirits that afflict us and plant disease in our bodies, pain in the system, and finally death, have control over us so far as the flesh is concerned. But when the spirit is unlocked from the body, it is free from the power of death and Satan, and when that body comes up again, it also, with the spirit, will gain the victory over death, hell, and the grave. When the spirit leaves the tabernacle of flesh and goes into the spirit world, it has control over every evil influence with which it comes in contact, and when it takes up the body again, then the body also, with the spirit, will have control over every evil spirit that is in its tabernacle, if there is any such being, just as far as the spirit that has the priesthood had control over evil spirits. Perhaps you do not understand me. Take a spirit that has gone into the spirit world, does it have control over corruptible bodies? No. It can only act in the capacity of a spirit. As to the devils inhabiting these earthly bodies, it cannot control them, it only controls spirits. But when the spirit is again united to the body, that spirit and body unitedly have control over the evil bodies, those controlled by the devil and given over to the devils, if there is any such thing. Resurrected beings have control over matter as well as spirit. Brother Grant's body which lies here is useless, is good for nothing until it is resurrected, and merely needs a place in which to rest. His spirit has not fled beyond the sun. there are millions and millions of spirits in these valleys, both good and evil. We are surrounded with more evil spirits than good ones, because more wicked than good men have died here. For instance, thousands and thousands of wicked Lamanites have laid their bodies in these valleys. The spirits of the just and unjust are here. The spirits that were cast out of heaven, which you know are recorded to have been 1/3 part, were thrust down to this earth, and have been here all the time, with Lucifer, the son of the morning, at their head. Right bracket Brigham Young. JD 7:240. Every person possessing the principle of eternal life should look upon his body as of the earth earthy. Our bodies must return to their mother earth. True, to most people it is a wretched thought that our spirits must, for a longer or shorter period, be separated from our bodies, and thousands and millions have been subject to this affliction throughout their lives. If they understood the design of this probation and the true principles of eternal life, it is but a small matter for the body to suffer and die. When death is past, the power of Satan has no more influence over a faithful individual. That spirit is free, and can command the power of Satan. The penalty demanded by the fall has been fully paid, all is accomplished pertaining to it, when the tabernacle of a faithful person is returned to the earth. All that was lost has passed away, and that person will again receive his body. When he is in the spirit world, he is free from those contaminating and condemning influences of Satan that we are now subject to.